Hello, my problem is BCBA scoring less than 80% on their quality assurance checks across clients. One of the challenges that I've been finding as I'm scoring the quality assurance checks was the strategy in which I was doing it. So typically, I would let the BCBA know that I'm going to be doing a quality assurance check within the next week. And then when I complete the check, if it's less than 80, I don't submit the score. I give them the feedback and then give them a week to make some or all of the updates to get a score of 80%. And initially, that was great because it prevented us from getting lower scores submitted. However, I started to realize that BCBAs were relying on that feedback so that they weren't making the updates until the quality assurance time came. So the quality assurance process has been the same for at least a year and a half or 2 years now. Many of the BCBAs have been at the company for longer than that. So they're very familiar with those quality assurance expectations. But one of the BCBAs inadvertently stated that she refrained from making the updates because she knew she had a QA check coming up and I was going to give them the feedback for changes to make. So it didn't make sense for her to make those updates. And I was letting her know that, this is an ongoing process. So really the quality assurance should be up to date, ongoing, regardless of when I'm coming in to do the feedback. The other challenge with the strategy I was using was that 1 week turnaround, giving the BCBA feedback and then giving them a week to make the updates was a struggle because it was a very quick deadline. So I updated my strategy for letting them know that there will be a QA check coming up. And when I did the QA check, I submitted the score immediately, whether it was a 70 or 60 or 50 or whatever the case was. When I submitted the score, then I gave them the feedback and said, hey, you have 30 days to make these updates and I'll do a redo. So the pros of this new strategy was that now they get the full 30 days, but the cons was that they got a lower score submitted. And as I've been doing this new strategy, I'm realizing that BCBAs are scoring lower than 80% consistently because now the scores are being documented. So for my concept analysis, the concept was effective QA preparation. So having the BCBAs really prepare for QA checks and knowing what that preparation process looks like. And this refers to the behavior of preparing for monthly QA checks in a way that meets or exceeds an 80% score threshold. It involves organizing and updating client programming to meet the standards of the QA review, particularly in skills acquisition, behavior management, and parent training. So those are the three domains. So the critical attributes is the program is updated within the last month. Goals are operational. Progress is documented with graph data. Parent training goals are in and they're individualized, and the behavior modifications are updated based on the current trends. And then the very attributes are the type of client, the number of goals present, style of documentation, and the method of supervision. I know one of the most variable attributes is the number of goals and the type of client. So we try to do a 1-to-1 ratio with a maximum of 25 goals. So if a kiddo has 15 hours a week, they should have 15 goals in. If a kiddo has 40 hours a week, they should have 25 goals in. They can have more than 25, but they need at least, I just said maximum 25. But 25 is like the ideal maximum for a QA check. You can 100% have 40 goals in, that's a lot. But the expectation is if you have 25 or more hours, you should have just 25 goals. If you want to have more, that's absolutely fine. But the challenge is sometimes that 1-to-1 ratio isn't always practical. So if we have a client that has severe maladaptive behaviors and they just started ABA and too many goals, skills acquisition goals in the beginning may not be beneficial to treatment, this poses a barrier to this QA check, right? Because the BCBA has a rationale and they say, hey, I only have 10 goals, and even though it's 20 hours because we have so many behaviors that we need to reduce. So the BCBAs can typically give the director a heads up, but the challenge is the QA department wants the score sheet to be scored as is. So whether or not they have the rationale, that's great, and like it's okay in a sense, but the score is still going to drop because of that variable attribute, and that poses an issue. At my last organization with the QA checks, there was like a NA section. So like you were able to mark NA for one of the score domains if like there was a rationale, right? But I can see people kind of misusing that and abusing it. So we're required to mark the score for what it is, no matter what the rationale is. But it also kind of holds the BCBAs a little bit more accountable. So I'm not too concerned about that. But I think that was kind of the most variable attribute that poses an issue. Um, and then the type of client. I mean, that kind of goes in with the number of goals present, right? So like if the client is like really severe and impaired, they typically will have more hours. So